Some tractors become legends, not because of their power, not because of their features, but because they were built right the first time. But then came the redesigns, the updates nobody asked for, the improvements that made great tractors worse in every possible way. Engines that got weaker, cabins that became uncomfortable, electronics that constantly failed, and designs so bad that farmers actually begged companies to bring back the old model. These aren't just mistakes. They're the 10 worst redesigns that ruined tractors people once loved. Get ready to see how good machines turned into mechanical disasters. Number 1. John Deere 20 Series to 30 Series. The John Deere 20 Series tractors, especially the 3020 and 4020, were machines that defined an entire generation of farming. They were simple, strong, forgiving, and famously dependable. These tractors didn't need fancy electronics or complicated hydraulics. They started every morning, worked all day, and rarely complained. They were the gold standard of reliability. So when John Deere announced the redesigned 30 Series, farmers expected the same durable workhorse, but more powerful, more comfortable, and more efficient. Instead, they were met with a machine that looked modern on the outside, but carried a long list of headaches underneath the hood. The first major problem came from updated emissions components and redesigned fuel systems. The mechanical pumps in the 20 Series were virtually bulletproof, but on the 30 Series, the new pumps were more sensitive, more expensive, and far less reliable. Fuel delivery became inconsistent, cold starts became harder, and the engines felt weaker under heavy load, even though Deere advertised them as more powerful. Farmers immediately noticed overheating issues, rougher idle, and more frequent maintenance needs. Then came the electrical redesign. Older Deere tractors used simple wiring that could be fixed with basic tools, but the 30 Series used complex wiring harnesses that suffered from corrosion, brittle connectors, and grounded-out circuits. Lights flickered, gauges stuck, and random failures became common. A machine once known for toughness now had electrical issues that frustrated even dealership technicians. The cab redesign also failed expectations. Deere attempted to improve comfort, but airflow was uneven, panel rattles were common, and noise insulation was poorer than customers hoped for. The redesign didn't just disappoint, it undermined the legendary reputation of the 20 Series. A great tractor became an overcomplicated one, proving that modernization isn't always an upgrade. Number 2. Ford 8N to NAA. Golden Jubilee. Few tractors in history are as beloved as the Ford 8N. It was simple, cheap to maintain, easy to repair, lightweight, and rugged enough for small farms. It became a cultural icon. But when Ford unveiled the NAA Golden Jubilee, marking the company's 50th anniversary, it introduced a redesign that looked promising but created more problems than it solved. Ford wanted to bring the tractor into a modern era, but in doing so, they abandoned the formula of simplicity that made the 8N legendary. The most controversial change was the hydraulic system. The 8N used a transmission-driven internal pump that was nearly impossible to destroy. On the Golden Jubilee, Ford added an external piston pump, claiming it would improve responsiveness. Instead, the pump frequently leaked, became sluggish, and was notoriously hard to prime in winter. Hydraulic failures became extremely common, and repairs required more money and more time. The redesigned engine, while more advanced with overhead valves, introduced new trouble. The engine ran hotter, suffered from oil leaks, and needed regular adjustments that the old flathead engines never required. Cold weather cracking and carburetor inconsistencies made the tractor less reliable overall. Even the ergonomics were worse. The new seat position felt awkward. The clutch pedal sat too high, and the revised steering geometry made the tractor feel heavier and harder to control. Farmers expected an improved version of the 8N, but instead found a tractor that was more expensive to maintain and far less forgiving to operate. The Golden Jubilee was supposed to celebrate innovation, but instead it proved that redesigns need more than flashy upgrades. They need genuine improvement. Number 3. International Harvester 86 Series to 88 Series. International Harvester had a tough reputation. Big, powerful tractors, heavy frames, and engines that could outpull most competitors. The 86 Series had its issues, mainly cab layout and transmission quirks, but farmers trusted them. Then came the 88 series, advertised as IH's big leap forward. Farmers expected IH to fix known weak spots. Instead, the redesign arrived during IH's financial collapse, and the engineering suffered because of rushed development, limited budget, and poor quality control. The new hydraulic system was one of the biggest disappointments. IH attempted to modernize their tractors with more responsive hydraulic controls, but the new valves leaked, the system overheated easily, and long-term reliability was poor. These issues weren't just minor annoyances, they reduced tractor performance in the field, especially with heavy implements that demanded continuous hydraulic flow. The 88 series transmission was also expected to be a major improvement. Instead, it became one of IH's biggest headaches. The redesigned power shift wasn't refined properly, and failures were shockingly common. Slipping gears, harsh shifting, and internal damage occurred far more often than in the earlier mechanical systems. These breakdowns were expensive and time-consuming, and dealership mechanics struggled to keep up with repairs. Even the cab, which IH heavily promoted, disappointed farmers. Noise levels were high, materials felt cheap, air circulation was poor, and the seat placement made long working days uncomfortable. Controls were scattered in odd positions, and visibility wasn't improved enough to matter. The 88 series wasn't just a flawed redesign, it became a symbol of IH's downfall. Instead of fixing old problems, IH created new ones, and the redesign damaged the brand at a critical moment. Number 4. Massey Ferguson 200 series to 300 series. The Massey Ferguson 200 series was adored around the world for one main reason: simplicity. These tractors were cheap, basic, and extremely easy to repair. They became especially popular in developing countries because anyone with simple tools could keep them alive. When MF launched the 300 series, they promised a more modern tractor with improved hydraulics and updated engines. But the redesign introduced so much fragility that it ruined everything farmers loved about the original. The hydraulic overhaul was the most dramatic failure. The 200 series used mechanical valves, nearly indestructible. The new 300 series relied on internal solenoids and delicate control rods placed deep inside the rear housing. This meant that even a tiny internal failure required splitting the entire tractor. A one-hour problem on the old models turned into a multi-day repair on the new ones. Engine updates created even more trouble. The new engines looked impressive on paper, but ran hotter, needed more frequent adjustment, and developed liner and head gasket problems far earlier than expected. The added emissions components reduced reliability and made the tractors more sensitive to fuel quality, something the 200 series was famous for tolerating. Electrical issues became a daily frustration. MF added sensors, indicators, and a more complex wiring harness. Unfortunately, the connectors weren't weather protected, causing corrosion, shorts, and mystery faults. The redesign removed everything that made MF tractors loved: simplicity, durability, and easy repair. The 300 series became a tractor that needed dealerships, not farmers, to stay alive. Number 5. Case 70 series to Case 94 series. Case's 70 series tractors were the definition of tough. Their mechanical transmissions, strong engines, and straightforward design made them favorites among farmers who wanted reliability without unnecessary complexity. When Case introduced the 94 series, they aimed to push forward into the electronic age. But instead of improving their tractors, Case created machines that were sensitive, glitchy, and often completely immobilized by minor electrical faults. The biggest disaster was the electronically controlled power shift transmission. The earlier mechanical versions were strong and simple, but the 94 series relied on electronic solenoids and a control module that were extremely vulnerable to dust, vibration, and moisture. When even one solenoid misfired, the tractor refused to shift, or worse, locked itself in gear. Farmers went from enjoying bulletproof performance to battling unpredictable failures that required dealership diagnostics. The digital dashboard added even more problems. Case tried to modernize with an electronic display that monitored the tractor's functions, but these displays flickered, froze, or shut down entirely. And when the dashboard died, the operator lost all vital information: hydraulic pressures, temperatures, and even fuel levels. The cab redesign looked promising, but delivered more noise, poorer airflow, and cheaper-feeling build quality. The AC systems failed frequently, and the fan motors burned out faster than expected. The 94 series didn't just disappoint. It betrayed the trust Case had built with farmers. A strong mechanical platform was buried under fragile electronics, turning a once-beloved tractor lineage into a reliability nightmare. Number 6. Belarus 820 to Belarus 920. The Belarus 820 earned its reputation the hard way, by surviving brutal working conditions. It wasn't refined or comfortable, but it was unbelievably tough. Farmers valued it because it was simple, mechanical, and easy to repair with basic tools. But when the company redesigned it into the Belarus 920, they tried to make it modern, comfortable, and more advanced, and in doing so, they stripped away everything that made the original so dependable. The first and biggest failure was the new wiring system. Belarus attempted to update the electrical components by adding more switches, sensors, relays, and dashboard instrumentation. Unfortunately, they used low-quality connectors, poorly insulated wiring, and unreliable fuse boxes. As a result, the 920 suffered from constant electrical issues, dead lights, intermittent gauges, no start conditions, battery drains, and random shutdowns. What was once a tractor known for mechanical simplicity became a machine crippled by electrical gremlins. The redesigned cab also disappointed farmers. It looked more modern, but build quality was shockingly poor. Thin insulation caused the cab to rattle constantly. Visibility was obstructed by poorly designed window frames, and the air conditioning when installed failed frequently. The cab heater was weak, the door seals leaked dust, and noise levels were often higher than on older models. Hydraulic changes made things worse. The 820's crude but reliable hydraulics were replaced with a more sensitive valve block that was prone to leaks and pressure loss. Under heavy loads, the system struggled to maintain lifting power, something the older models never had trouble with. The Belarus 920 wasn't a modernization, it was a downgrade. A legendary rugged tractor was turned into a fragile machine that required constant repairs. The redesign ruined one of the toughest tractor platforms the world had ever seen. Number 7. New Holland TM Series to TG Series. The New Holland TM series was widely respected for its balance between modern features and proven mechanical reliability. It offered strong engines, durable transmissions, and just enough electronics to improve usability without compromising longevity. But when New Holland redesigned the TM into the TG series, they went all in on modernization, introducing advanced electronics, complex hydraulics, and sensitive controllers. The result was a tractor that looked futuristic but became infamous for electrical failures and mechanical instability. One of the most frustrating redesigns was the electronic hitch control EHC system. The TM's hitch control was mechanically reliable and rarely failed, but the TG relied on position sensors, solenoids, and electronic control boxes. If even one sensor malfunctioned, a common occurrence, the three-point hitch would behave unpredictably, lifting unevenly, dropping suddenly, or refusing to lift at all. Farmers were furious because a single $20 sensor could disable a $100,000 tractor. The TG's CAN bus electronic system added more chaos. While advanced for its time, the system was overly sensitive to voltage fluctuations. A slightly weak battery or loose ground could trigger dozens of phantom fault codes, disable PTO systems, shut off hydraulic functions, or even prevent the tractor from starting. Troubleshooting these issues often required expensive diagnostic tools, not something farmers appreciated. The engine redesign also caused reliability issues. Higher operating temperatures, more sensitive EGR systems, and finicky injection components made the TG less durable and more maintenance-heavy than the TM. Instead of improving the platform, New Holland introduced complications that made farming more stressful, not easier. The TG series showed that technology, when forced into a tractor without proper durability, can ruin a perfectly good design. Number 8. John Deere 8000 series to 8020 series. The John Deere 8000 series, such as the 8100 and 8200, is often considered one of the greatest tractor platforms ever built. These tractors had nearly perfect balance, incredible visibility, bulletproof engines, and one of the best transmissions ever made. The Deere Power Shift. Farmers loved them for their comfort, reliability, and low operating costs. So when Deere redesigned them into the 80/20 series, expectations were sky high. But the redesign introduced changes that made the new model significantly less reliable. The biggest problem was the introduction of EGR, exhaust gas recirculation, for emissions compliance. These engines ran hotter, broke down more often, and suffered from premature wear. Injectors failed, turbos overheated, and soot buildup caused numerous engine-related issues. Farmers who were used to the indestructible nature of the 8000 series were shocked at how fragile the new engines felt. Hydraulic redesigns added to the trouble. Deere introduced more sensitive load-sensing valves and additional sensors that were prone to failure. A single bad valve could reduce hydraulic pressure across the entire system, affecting steering, brakes, and implement performance. These failures were expensive and difficult to diagnose. Even the cab design, which Deere advertised as more comfortable, had flaws. The seat suspension was less durable, airflow distribution was inconsistent, and rattles appeared earlier in the tractor's life. The redesigned cab did not match the reputation of the older generation. The 80/20 series wasn't a disaster, but it was undeniably worse than the nearly flawless 8000 series. It proved that sometimes a perfect machine should be left alone. Number 9. Kubota M series. Old to Kubota M series. Redesigned 2000s. Kubota built its reputation on one core principle: simple tractors that never die. The older M series, like the M5030, M6800, and M7030, were lightweight, incredibly durable, and nearly immune to breakdowns. They were the kind of tractors that stayed on farms for decades, often outlasting their owners. But when Kubota redesigned the M series in the early 2000s, the company tried to add comfort, styling, and emissions improvements. In doing so, they sacrificed the rugged durability that made the earlier versions legendary. The most obvious downgrade was the heavy use of plastic body panels. Kubota replaced durable metal parts with thin plastic that cracked from vibration, sun exposure, and even mild impacts. Hood latches failed, side panels warped, and mounting clips snapped off regularly. Farmers used to the old all-metal Kubotas were stunned to see cosmetic and structural issues appearing so early in the tractor's lives. The redesigned engines also caused concern. They were more fuel efficient, but the new emissions components, especially early EGR systems, caused clogging, overheating, and injector failures. The once forgiving Kubota engines became sensitive to fuel quality, temperature, and maintenance schedules. Hydraulic systems, once known for simplicity, became more complex with additional valves and electronics. Cold weather performance suffered, and the new systems experienced increased internal leakage. The redesign made the tractors look modern, but feel weaker. The older M series were unstoppable. The new ones were noticeably more delicate. Kubota didn't ruin the brand, but they absolutely weakened one of their best product lines. Number 10. Same Explorer to Same Explorer 2. The original Same Explorer was a legend in Europe, a simple, lightweight, fuel-efficient tractor with an iconic air-cooled engine. Farmers loved it because it had minimal electronics, easy maintenance, and excellent reliability in even the harshest climates. But when Same redesigned it into the Explorer 2, they removed every major feature that made the original brilliant and replaced it with fragile, overcomplicated systems. The biggest loss was the air-cooled engine. It was replaced with a liquid-cooled version that suffered from radiator issues, overheating, coolant leaks, and higher maintenance requirements. What was once a maintenance-free cooling system now became a list of potential failure points. Transmission changes also backfired. The Explorer 2 introduced synchronized gears that wore out quickly and caused grinding or difficulty shifting. The new transmission was smoother only when brand new. After a few hundred hours of work, it became noisier and more fragile than the original. Electronics were the final blow. Same added sensors, electrical circuits, warning lights, and wiring that weren't properly protected from dust or moisture. Electrical shorts became common, dashboards malfunctioned, and the tractors developed a reputation for random shutdowns. Even the cab redesign failed to impress. It was louder, less insulated, and often less comfortable than the older version. The Explorer 2 was meant to modernize a classic. Instead, it destroyed everything that made the Explorer beloved. This redesign remains one of the worst decisions in SAM's history. And there you have it, 10 redesigns that proved newer doesn't always mean better. Some of these tractors lost their reliability, some lost their performance, and some lost the very soul that made them great in the first place. One decision from the drawing board, one modern update, and a legendary machine suddenly becomes the model farmers warn each other about. If you enjoyed this look at the biggest redesign failures in tractor history, don't forget to check out our other deep dives into the world of farming machines, from the best engineering masterpieces to the worst mechanical mistakes ever built.